Good morning, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here of On the FinSide with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the FanSided Network and FinFanatic.com. I'm Brian Cat, NFL. Paul is Fanatic_pick on Twitter. We're talking to you from a little bit of a different angle today here. So doing this from actually my phone because some computer issues that I don't even want to start with. But the Dolphins go to or play the Steelers this week in Miami. 3-3. Obviously, the last several weeks haven't been good here for the Dolphins. And Paul, I would describe the situation as this. After they lost to the Bengals, I thought, okay, well, the Dolphins are still exactly where they need to be. And after the loss to the Jets, that was a painful one, but still 3-2. After they lost to the Vikings, I'm not quite pressing the panic button, but I at least got it out and it's on my desk. Now, if they lose to the Steelers as 7.5-point favorites on a night where the Dolphins 1972 team is going to be celebrated, yeah, I'm pressing the panic button at that point.
I'm not quite pressing the panic button. We lost 3 games, but we had Tua for about a quarter and a half in those 2 games. And that's a huge difference. We see the impact that Tua has on this team. We saw a different energy when he wasn't on the field. And while I am not one to sit there and cry about all the injuries that we've had, at the quarterback position, that is absolutely the most critical that we could have had. Tua in 3 games averaged over 300 yards per game. I'm not counting the quarter and a half against the Bengals right now. And really had command of this offense in a way that we have not seen, whether it was from Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater. And the quarterback position has been rough for us the past 2 weeks. Teddy Bridgewater going out after one play, Skylar Thompson going out in the first half, both with weirdness we'll go with. I mean, Skylar hit his hand on a helmet and just busted his fingers up. And Teddy got spotted by a guy with binoculars and told to go sit down. So it's been a weird couple of weeks here, and hopefully we're back on track with Tua back in the fold.
Well, here's the good news good news, bad news really is over the last 2 weeks, the Dolphins have committed 21 penalties. Okay. And they've also had 5 turnovers on offense and haven't forced any. And if you think about it, you look at the other 2, or you look at 2 missed field goals as well by Jason Sanders that gave the opposition the ball at the 40, and a safety and a botched fake punt attempt. You're actually looking at 9 turnovers over the last 2 weeks. Now, I'm not saying that to, pick at any wounds here, but that's not going to continue for the Dolphins. It's just not going to. I mean, if you've got bigger problems, if you have no answers for why you're committing 10 or 11 penalties a game and 4 or 5 turnovers, I don't expect that to continue here against the Steelers.
I don't either. And if you look, at least on paper, Miami leads in a lot of categories here against these guys. I mean, the Steelers turn the ball over a decent amount. Their offensive line is not great. Miami has, believe it or not, a better rushing attack at the moment. And then, you look at the air attack too, and the fact that if Kenny Pickett plays, he is a rookie that hasn't done great things. And if not, you've got to face the big, scary Mitch Trubisky.
Yep. Yeah, that's we'll talk about the matchups here. Obviously, a big part of this too is, and leading up to the week, is Brian Flores, linebackers coach here for the Steelers. And in addition to that, Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to be starting there at free safety for them. Obviously, he's been a great addition for them. And some of the talk has been about, well, do these guys know Tua, or does Brian Flores know Tua, and are they going to implement a game plan that stifles them? I'm like, well, under that logic, are they also going to treat Jalen Waddle like somebody who's a not who averages 9 yards a catch? And they're just like, hey, don't worry about him. He's just another Jarvis Landry. It's okay. We could stop him. So I'm truly not concerned about that. And frankly, I look forward to sticking it to Brian Flores in this game.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one here, and that's definitely a storyline. I think more so for the fans than most of the players. And if you want to, people can say that Brian Flores knows Tua, but you look at the offense that they ran with him last year and the year before. You look at the utilization of Tua when Flo was here, and I'd almost argue he doesn't, and that was part of the problem.
Right. Again, when Brian Flores was here, they could have written a book on how to not develop a quarterback. And so, yeah, well, Dolphins have to get this one. There's no doubt about that. So you've got Tua back, and here's the good side of this, and also somewhat the very, very scary side is if the Dolphins win this game, the entire narrative next week, and rightfully so, is going to be about how the Dolphins are 4-0 under Tua with him starting a quarterback. The team is back on track. You've got a weaker part of the schedule coming up. Things are back. We're good to go. If you lose the game here, I don't even want to think about what the stories are going to be the following week. To me, the train is officially off the track. And I say that because yes, the Dolphins can lose this game if you commit 10 plus penalties and have 3 or 4 turnovers. You can absolutely lose to the Steelers here. They are an opportunistic team.
Yeah, they are. And it's, I mean, you can lose to any team in the NFL. The Steelers are not a terrible team. They're just not a very good one. It's kind of funny because they have you look at their passing game. They have a more balanced passing game across their top 4 receivers, including Pat Freiermuth, who is fantastic as a tight end. Somebody we talked about a lot in our draft coverage when he was coming out. And, they're very balanced across it. But you look at what Miami's got right now in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, despite the fact that they've played with backup quarterbacks the past 2.5 plus games. And they're 2 of the top receivers in the NFL. They literally have, I think Jalen Waddle has literally double the receiving yardage right now of Pittsburgh's top receiving threat. So, and the 2 of them combined have more yardage than the top 4 weapons combined for the Steelers.
Yeah, leading the team is Deontay Johnson, somewhere around 325 yards. Najee Harris has had a nightmare of a season so far. Joey Bag of Donuts here from a couple of days ago provided a lot of good insight there on Najee, that at first in training camp, it was, hey, he just got stepped on and it's not that big of a deal. And then later on, they find out, well, he actually has a Liz Frank injury, which we know from the Ted Ginn days is a pretty big deal. And then from there, it went to, well, he had a steel plate removed on October 12th. So it's been a nightmare of a season for him. And hopefully this is not his breakout game. I don't think it will be. The Dolphins have been, for everything that's gone wrong on the defensive side of the ball for the Dolphins this year, the truth is Dolphins are really good against the run this year. 3.65 yards a carry to opposing running backs. Najee's only averaging 3.2 yards a carry. So, yeah, I think that the Dolphins could certainly make the Steelers and their rookie quarterback one-dimensional, which is not a good situation for them.
Well, and on top of the average per carry and on top of everything else, if you remove Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky from the mix, the Steelers only have 1 rushing touchdown on the year. To put that in perspective, if you look at the Dolphins, Chase Edmonds has 2 by himself. So Durham Smythe has as many rushing touchdowns as the Steelers running back room right now. So that's
Yep.
Najee Harris can absolutely go off, but he doesn't scare me in this game.
Yeah, he doesn't for me either. I don't think he's scared anybody this season. Um, yeah, and defensively, the Dolphins. I mean, I'd say force more turnovers. They need to force more turnovers. They need to force a turnover for Christ's sakes. I mean, in the
Yeah.
last 5 games, they've had one turnover, and they have not had an interception since week 1 or since the first quarter of the first game. This is turning into a joke here. And I I can understand to an extent why they haven't, because they've been down in a lot of these games. They face some really good quarterbacks. You can't get down to this team. If at the end of the first quarter, if the Dolphins have committed a lot of penalties, losing the turnover battle, and are down on the scoreboard, I'm going to say, what's going on here? Why do you constantly stumble out of the gate?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's I know I made this comparison before, but it feels like we've got Sam Madison and Pat Surtain working with the defensive backs, but it almost feels like we've got oh God, I'm blanking now. Chris Clemens back there teaching him how to intercept the ball. Like, just close both fists and punch it. Yeah, it's they've been in position to make a lot of interceptions. Noah Igbenogany was actually in position for a couple last week. Um, we just haven't reeled the ball in when we've been in position, and that's something that I don't expect from this defensive backcourt. You know, one guy I'd like to see get a little more time, because especially after watching him in the preseason, I'd like to see Eli Campbell make his way on the field in this game. I really truly would.
Yeah, I can see that. Hopefully that's the case. That you see a little bit more of him, because the Dolphins' backup cornerbacks did step up last week. I mean, look, the Dolphins' defense had as many 3-and-outs forced as the Dolphins had points with 2 minutes left in the game. 10. You know, that's crazy. And when you consider that, no Nick Needham, no Byron Jones. Yeah, I mean, pretty crazy. And in this game here, the Dolphins obviously are not going to have Byron Jones. I don't think he's going to return at all this year. Keon Crossan is doubtful, so we're expecting him to not play. So you're looking at Xavier Howard as your leading cornerback. He's questionable, but should play. I thought he looked more like him, a little bit more like himself last week. And then you've got Cater Kohu returning to the lineup, Noah Igbenogany, Justin Bethel, who played really well last week.
Mm-hmm.
So you should be able to round out a decent starting 4. I wouldn't say the Dolphins have the matchup there as the second and third cornerbacks, but this is a defense that hid that pretty well last week after the cornerbacks started going down.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that scares me, though, too, is because, like I said before, the Steelers are very balanced when it comes to their wide receiver room and who catches the ball. The interesting thing for me is, as well, is going to be if we see Eric Rowe shadowing Pat Freiermuth all over the field, because it's Freiermuth will make you pay, and we need Rowe to be that tight end eraser in this one, so that we can keep guys like Brandon Fields and guys like Javon Holland free to help out with those receivers over the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry for the Blair Witch Project type of camera wobbling here today. I had 4 headsets go out on 2 different computers, so I have no idea what's going on. I'm not too happy, and it's not just because of the 3-game losing streak. The Steelers' offensive line, I'll tell you,
after losing 3 straight, Cat's so scared right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm
just in
pissed.
time for Halloween, baby. Let's go.
I'm pissed about a lot of things. But also defensively, Jalen Phillips, I'm looking to continue a really good season, or a really good last couple of games here from him. I know he's only got a sack and a half on the year, but just rewatching the game against Christian Darrisaw, I thought he did a fantastic job. Christian Wilkins is having a phenomenal season. Up front, the Steelers are not great. If you listen to Joey Bag of Donuts from our previous segment too, it's the weak point of the Steelers team. On the outside, you've got Chuck Okafor and Dan Moore going up against Jalen Phillips. and Emmanuel Agba. Agba a little bit iffy for this game. He's been iffy all season, quite frankly. But I think the Dolphins are going to be able to put a lot of pressure there on this rookie quarterback. So I feel good about that. On the offensive side of the ball, yeah, you've got, I mean, what it comes down to, Paul, is Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, teams that face the Dolphins. And, I know the Steelers are getting all their defensive backs back, is aside from Akila Weatherspoon. But anyone that faces the Dolphins is just going to have to accept the fact that these guys are going to be running wide open all game. Tyreek Hill is on pace for rushing and receiving yards over 2,000 for the year. Jalen Waddle, 1,336 for the year. I know he's coming off a rough game. He's going to have a lot to come back and prove here in this game. So now that the Dolphins have Teron Armstead supposed to be coming back in this game at left tackle against Alex Highsmith, if the Dolphins can give Tua some time, that's where this game is going to be won or lost. With Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle against that secondary, that's not all that great for the Steelers.
No, and the one thing I need to see from Tua this week that we have not seen from him this season, and this is going to be a critical one, is when the play is not there, take off or get rid of the ball. It's don't stand in the pocket or dance around back there for 6-7 seconds, which he has done a few times. And we all saw the result against Cincinnati. It's do something or get rid of it, period. And I hate to put it that way, but you just can't dance around back there like you're behind Donovan McNabb's line from the Eagles a little over a decade ago, or more than that, possibly.
Well, yeah, it's and he needs to not do that so that he doesn't get killed. And it just it would be terrible if he took his time back there and took any sort of hit that put him out of the game again. You're talking about a absolute media catastrophe moving forward. Then again, I don't really care. After the media and the NFL has disgraced themselves over the last month, I really don't care all that much either. But Tua he cannot take those big hits. He just can't. We've seen what happens when he does. So, but I'm looking forward to him being back. And again, if the Dolphins win this game and they go on a little bit of a run here in the weaker part of their schedule, the narrative is going to shift back to the Dolphins just keep winning when Tua's at quarterback. And that's the position that we want to be in.
That said, before we move on from Tua here, one thing I would love to see, and this is totally selfish and irresponsible of me when I say this, I would love to see Tua take off with the ball just one time in this game. And like he did against the Jets last year, when he gets to the secondary, drop that shoulder and absolutely annihilate and truck stick Minkah Fitzpatrick. That would just be a fun little thing for me. And have him just stand up and glance over it at Flo. Just storyline wise, that would make me happy.
I'm really confused that you go from don't take any big hits to go truck stick somebody.
Just once. And he's not taking a big hit at that point. He's giving it. It's different.
I don't care about that stuff. I don't want to put his body in any danger. Like I'm done. No, I'm done with it. Fine once, and then they truck stick somebody, and then he's got a concussion, and then we've got to deal with that nonsense.
I don't know. The spotter might take Minkah out of the game after that. I mean,
oh no, they would take. They would take
Tua out.
Minkah would get up, wobble, and then it would take Tua out of the game. I mean, like I said, I'll be a spotter. I mean, I have no problem being a spotter. I mean, especially in Miami, just put me down there, because I'll tell you, the first time the opposing quarterback hits the ground, he's out of the game. I'll just lie. I mean, why not?
You
That's
know
what they did that's what they did in New York.
what I think they should do, just since we're talking about the spotters here, is those spotters can't make the call. I think those spotters should send it into a central review board, like some of the talk with instant replay. Send it into a central review board, and they can review the footage and make the call from there. That would keep the responsibility there for the NFL, but it would also just not be a one-man subjective, get him the hell out of there moment.
That makes a lot of sense to me. But just put me down there. I'll just lie and just take all the opposing quarterbacks out of the game. Why not? I
Well,
mean,
if somebody gets a good pass rush on, they lay a good lick on the quarterback. You know what? Yeah.
and
He's got to go.
I love the explanation about what happened in the Jets game. The spotter felt like he wobbled. So it's gone from you have a concussion and you're out of the game to you wobbled, it's concerning and you're out of the game to, well, the person that saw you felt like he saw you wobble.
Well,
Like,
I mean, Bridgewater walks a little weird,
people.
so he might as well just plan on being taken out of every game, period.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not, you should get up and you should sing. You should be singing and dancing. You should sing the rendition of Bye Bye Birdie's opening song on the way back to the huddle after you get knocked down.
Well, if I did that, the spotter would probably eliminate me right then and there. Let's face
it. Yeah. So Terron
Andy
Armstead,
Reid wobbles. Andy Reid wobbles. They should take him out.
Yeah. We could go on all day with this. Terron Armstead did practice once this week. He doesn't. He does not. He's expected to play at left tackle, and and he's somebody who can, like we said, roll out of bed and play the left tackle position. And he's going to go up against Alex Highsmith, who leads the league with 6.5 sacks. If Alex Highsmith is neutralized by Terron Armstead and he plays the entire game, Tua is going to have a lot of time to throw. Another concerning matchup is Cameron Hayward, who is having a great season again, 12-year pro. He is going up against Liam Eichenberg in this game. That is also extremely concerning. So if the Dolphins can get the better of those two matchups, I feel really good about what they're going to be able to do offensively.
I feel pretty good about what they're going to be able to do offensively anyway, so long as we can keep to it in this game. Raheem Mostert is just getting better every week. Like you talked about before with Tyreek and Waddle, they're both on pace for a ridiculous number of yards and all pro status this season. We saw Mike Gesicki start to emerge a little bit last week, and I expect the Dolphins to build off of that in this one because he can just do things that are undefensible. Does he do a lot after the catch besides the gritty? No. But at the same time, if you lob a ball up to Mike Gesicki, he's the only person that can get it.
Yeah, and so that's been a little bit more talk this week with the trade deadline coming up here on November 1st. Does Mike Gesicki – do you think, Paul, Mike Gesicki's going to get traded before the trade deadline?
No, that started, in all honesty, to gain steam from basically some dude in Pennsylvania that covers the Saints. So, yeah. That would be like me coming out and saying, I expect the Seahawks to trade DK Metcalf. Like, sure, I would love to see DK Metcalf come in here and combine with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But at the same time, I don't expect it to happen. I don't expect DK Metcalf to get moved. And I wouldn't say that and put that out in the ether that I expect it. I could put out there that I love it. I would love the idea, but just like we talked about with Taylor Moton the other day. Do we expect the Panthers to trade Taylor Moton? No, we don't. But at the same time, it would be irresponsible of Chris Greer to not call them up and go, hey, we noticed you traded a fragile running back to a team that breaks running backs this week. How do you feel about Taylor Moton? Do you like draft picks more than Taylor Moton? Because we got draft picks.
Right. Yeah, Moton would be one that I'd be interested in. I've also made my feelings known on William Jackson. I think the Dolphins would be crazy not to make that call. I know who put that tweet out, and it's not relevant to me on that front. But it seems like the Dolphins would be very willing to trade Mike Gesicki. He's clearly not a great fit in this offense, and despite having 70 yards and 2 touchdowns last game, still not a great fit. So I would be asking that question regardless of any tweet that was put out. But when it comes down to what
to be fair,
go ahead.
real quick, it's Mike Gesicki is not a great fit in any traditional offense because he has a different skill set than most tight ends do, and that's where you scheme your offense mildly different to utilize his skill set. So, I mean, we can make that argument for almost any team you would trade him to, because he's not your inline tight end. He's not a great blocker, but the things he can do are special, and you scheme your team for that. Just like Tyreek is not a traditional wide receiver, but you scheme your offense around his skill set, period.
Right. And CK Parrott talks about this on his show a lot, all the time, is that when the Dolphins have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Gesicki out there, that's their best formation. That's the most productive one, because even if Gesicki is not catching a lot of passes, he draws a lot of coverage. You put out Durham Smythe, you put out Tanner Connor, it's not the same thing. So, yeah, to me, it's always been, I would be 50-50 on if the Dolphins were offered a second-round pick. I don't think they will be offered a second-round pick with the numbers Gesicki's put up this year and with the contract he'll probably demand with a new team. And if you start talking about a third or fourth round pick, it's worthless, because if Gesicki signs somewhere else for 12, 13 million a year, maybe even more, with a specific team as a free agent, the Dolphins are going to get a comp pick anyway. So it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. I hope the Dolphins keep him, even if he's not a focal point of the offense. He's still a chess piece that can be moved. So,
yeah, and I would argue as well that unless it's a high second round pick, I wouldn't make the move, because at that point, I would give up a 1-round slide for that compensatory pick for a season of Gesicki, 100 times out of 100. It's almost as if you're swapping a second for a third to have a season with Gesicki. And I do that every single time. Like, because at the end of the day, even if he's struggling in this offense, he's going to have those 2 touchdown games, and they may come in the playoffs. They may come in a critical game that puts you in the playoffs. They may come in a goddamn Super Bowl if we're lucky. Like, and that's where that 1 round worth of pick there, however you want to phrase it, because that was awkward the way I just phrased that, but that 1 round slide, I would do that 1,000 times out of 1,000, not even 100 times out of 100, to keep Gesicki on this roster for this season. That is goofiness to think about trading him when he is a critical weapon. And I'd go a step further than what you said, CK said. I'd say the Dolphins' best formation, in all honesty, is Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Durham Smythe, and Mike Gesicki on the field at the same time, because there's so many things and looks you can do out of that, especially with the Durham Smythe's, under the radar emergence this season, which doesn't pack a stat sheet, but does a lot for this Dolphins offense, including when you throw an end around to Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill, and you've got him kind of blocking and leading the play. So, and he's a good receiver, and we've seen sneaky little plays as far as getting first downs and third and short with him sneaking under center and firing the ball forward like he did on that touchdown run the other week. So, yeah, that their best formation is honestly those 4 on the field with Raheem Mostert back there with Tua.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could have used a little bit more Durham Smythe last week, chip blocking. And I don't quite understand why the Dolphins haven't done more of that with the offensive tackle struggling the way that they did. So Austin Jackson's not going to be back this week. And I've got a little bone to pick, and I may have said this last week too, is that I'm quite frankly stunned that how short of a memory some Dolphins fans have about how bad Austin Jackson was. Like, okay, in week 1, he wasn't his usual awful self, but I'm going to take the last 2 years over the first game of this year. So I've been saying that this week that stop putting people on the field that flat out we know ruin drives. Liam Eichenberg, Austin Jackson, Greg Little. Okay. Brandon Shell, I think, gets roped into that conversation based on how he played last week. Is that okay? We had backup tackles. The offensive line played like crap. So it's Little and Brandon Shell. I rewatched the game. Greg Little was getting whooped on every play. Brandon Shell let up a few pressures. That's not the same thing. And in the first 3 drives of the game last week, Liam Eichenberg and Greg Little combined took 10 points off the board in the first 3 drives. So, I'm looking. Why would you have? Why wouldn't you put Robert Jones in there for Eichenberg? Hope things get better instead of sticking with the guy that's getting whooped every play.
Well, the other argument there too is not just Robert Jones, but as much as they don't want to do this, plugging Michael Dieter at guard as well and moving Hunt to right tackle.
Yeah, I'm
That's your
fine
best 5
with
blockers on the field.
I'm fine with any combination that involves Eichenberg, Austin Jackson, and Greg Little not being on the field. If you want to put
Dieter,
Dieter
guard in camp that we cut that actually was getting it done, even though his body type doesn't match the blocking scheme.
Yeah, you can go sign him tomorrow if you want. I'd be open for that. I mean,
we did.
He's probably up to 415 pounds by now, but still.
Hey, there's a quote from Mike McDaniel about the reason that they utilize the blocking scheme is because obviously they would love to have a bunch of guys that are 400 pounds. So, but they just didn't get the chance to out in San Francisco. So I know of one, Solomon Kinley. Let's go.
I think they've made their decision with there, but hey, look,
part of being a coach is knowing when you were wrong. And with Liam Eichenberg at left guard right now, they were wrong.
Yep, they were wrong. PFF gave him a grade of 71 this past, which is actually good for their scouting grades. I don't know how you get to that number with him. With basically anytime there was a stunt, a free defender would just come in and drill the quarterback right over Liam Eichenberg. I really think they thought, oh, well, we're just going to blame everything on Greg Little.
That 71 was cumulative. That's actually all the numbers from the season added together for Eichenberg. So I'm pretty sure that was the case.
I guess so. So Paul, let's wrap this up here so I can get off the phone and start yelling at some IT people. What's your grade here?
My grade? We do that. We don't do that till our review show.
See, I'm all off. I'm all off. What's your prediction for the Steelers Dolphins game here?
I think if Tua can stay healthy, this is going to be a fun one that the Dolphin fans have been waiting a few weeks for. And I do think the Steelers can put some points on the board. I think Miami starts pulling in a couple of those interceptions. I don't think Najee gets fully back on track this week, even though he's going to upset us a few times. And I think Miami's air attack starts rolling again here. And I think Miami pulls this one out 30-19 in a weird scoring game.
Yeah, I, on one hand, am a little bit surprised that the Dolphins are favored by 7.5 in this, but I'm going to have them covering that. I'm going to go 31-17 Dolphins. I do think that being at home, honoring the 72 team, Tua being back, Armstead expected to be back. I predicted the Vikings to win last week against the Dolphins. I felt that they had the matchups against the Dolphins. I don't feel like the Steelers have the matchups here this week. So 31-17. I see Tua coming back, throwing for over 300 yards. Tyreek Hill, Waddle obviously having another big game.
You picked a bigger win than I did.
Yeah, I did. That's pretty we don't see that very often. And they've got to win this game because I'll tell you what, they go to 3-4. I'm not too confident that they're going to steamroll the easier part of the schedule with the Lions, Bears, Browns, and Texans coming up, because the Dolphins have to win 4 of these next 5 games. They have to, because if they go even 3-2 in these next 5 games, and they're 6-5 heading into the final part of their schedule, where you play at San Francisco, at the Chargers, the Packers at home, at New England, against the Jets. I mean, I don't see them going if they can't go at least 4-1 in these next 5 games. I don't see them going 500 in the final 6, which means you're not making the playoffs even. So you got to win this game.
At what, 1-8 last year, 1-7 last year, nobody saw the Dolphins doing anything. Like, they just went, oh no, it is a long season. And whether we've got a winning record at that point in time, or we've got a just under 500 record at that point in time, it is something that can be done. So I will never quit on a season, whether it's as far as like, oh yeah, we've got this now, or oh no, we're screwed, until that final bell rings, because stranger, weirder things have happened. Just like you look at that Baltimore game when Miami was down by 21 in the fourth quarter, everyone, Jesus, we got blown out today. And guess what? We won. So things can happen. One of the things I tell the kids I coach, never quit, never be satisfied. That's something that, I won't write off no matter what happens in the next 5 games, though I expect it to be a positive thing here as we move forward.
Yeah, I have a more cynical approach to that if the Dolphins lose this game.
What? You're more cynical than me? Come on.
If
none of our listeners knew that. That's new information.
If they're 3-4 and have lost 4 games in a row and have just dropped a game where they're favored by over a touchdown, I look at the rest of their schedule and I think you've got at Buffalo, you've got at New England, you've got the Packers, you've got at the Chargers. I can't see them from that point only losing 3 more games.
Well, we might see it.
So, but here's the good news. I think the Dolphins get back on track, and I think this is the game that turns the season around. 31-17 Dolphins is my prediction, and let's go. I mean, that's all we got to say. So thank you for joining us here this morning on the FinSide. I'm Brian Cat, NFL Pulse Fanatic_pick. I'm going to get the sound issue figured out here, hopefully by Sunday. Otherwise, I'm going to be joining you from this weird angle again. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the FanSide Network and FinFanatic.com. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side,